Bitcoin will explode upwards, and we'll explain how its price will rise. Right now, Bitcoin is in a corrective pattern related to this downward impulse. Often, smart money seeks to hide the guidelines they are working with. That's why after this downward impulse, we place the W here. It's a Y, and what we are experiencing next in the present is a Z. After offering us a strong and powerful impulse, the price usually seeks a correction to offer us a continuation replica, and such a correction can be carried out in different ways. Let's look at some theory. Here we have an upward impulse, here we have its correction, and here is its continuation upwards. Then, here we have a downward impulse, here we have its correction, and here is its downward replica. Here we are seeing the same. Here is an upward impulse, this is its correction, and here we have its replica. As you are noticing, financial markets move by impulses, corrections, and replicas. That's the way they work. Simple, basic, but functional. And this can certainly be applied to infinitely small time frames. For example, here we have an impulse and a replica. Once again, an impulse and a replica. But all in all, it is a larger impulse with a larger replica by the same rule. Here we have a much larger macro downward impulse, and here we are experiencing this corrective pattern. As I mentioned earlier, corrective patterns can occur in different ways. Some of them have a brief correction, a minimal pause to seek continuation. Others, on the other hand, require a somewhat deeper correction. We call them simple corrective patterns to then seek that continuation. And then there is a third type that is abundant in the crypto market, which are complex corrective patterns. These complex corrective patterns led to a much deeper correction, AAWI, and a very aggressive Z, which can even sometimes exceed the starting module of the downward impulse. One characteristic of the Z is that we will never know when they will end. It is therefore difficult to estimate its duration. That's why here we have a macro downward impulse. This is its W, this is its Y, and all of this is a very aggressive Z. And that's why from Crypto Insight, we were looking for the origin of the breakout, structures that allow us to estimate where that limit of the Z could be that suggests we are going to have such a correction. The correction, by the way, we think will fail, and then we will look for the replica of the upward impulse, much larger, to take us to new all-time highs. Now I'm sharing with you a bit of theory, and of course, you should know that not 100 at a time, we will see how this theory is satisfactorily reflected in the charts. So, looking back in the past, after seeing the price at these levels, in the Crypto Insight videos published then, what were we expecting? Well, here we have an upward impulse. Here we saw the W, we expected AI, something deep, tricky, and then to go to new all-time highs. This would be normal, but sometimes things don't happen as usual. And here we were surprised not to see that major correction, which would have been the most common, the most normal, and instead, it quickly went to the all-time high. But you know, what's important here is to know how to position oneself in time. That's why you also have it published in the YouTube videos how we considered ourselves long on Bitcoin from here, just as if we go to the present. Again, you will see in the YouTube videos, I invite you to look for it, that we were already long on Bitcoin for the long term around here. Now, in the last month or so, we've been looking for the end of the corrective pattern that Bitcoin is offering us. But given the recent events, we're going to share with you a reflection that I'm sure is of great interest to you. Look, let's also analyze the following. What we were looking for at the time was a smaller creek, a smaller accumulation process that suggests we should be bullish in the market. Later on, we identified a larger creek. As often, a macro accumulation process within itself identifies micro accumulation processes in the same direction that anticipate a major event. Once Bitcoin has broken its creek, the boundary of the bullish accumulation process, what smart money has to do now is go and look for that level that it has already pre-established with a lot of anticipation. How do we identify those levels? Well, we know that smart money looks for these targets with a simple measurement, a one-to-one. Here we have it. Hence, after breaking the creek, the price, with great explosiveness, wanted to go for the institutional target. Therefore, at this point, it was plausible to think, something we shared in the YouTube videos, that we might be at the limit of the rise. In other words, at the end of the correction of the macro downward impulse, which is nothing but a EZI whose nature is to be very aggressive and explosive. And now, pay close attention to a very specific event. The big institutions, in addition to going for a one-to-one measurement, also go for a 1.618 measurement. And mind you, don't confuse these types of measurements with Fibonacci to look for retracements. We're looking for directional projections in favor, and we find this second institutional target no more and no less than at the price level of $57,218. $87. And here we must say that smart money very often, when it reaches the first institutional target, and then looks for a retracement to immediately break the level, when we have these kinds of events, in a high percentage of occasions, what smart money is looking for is to go for the second institutional target. And considering that we are in the midst of a Z, an aggressive bullish Z by its nature, this invites us to think that eventually we can have that upward stretch. And if you're now wondering, does that imply then that we're not going to have the downward corrective pattern that we're expecting? Frankly, one thing doesn't eliminate the other. As I've said, the nature of the ZS is to be unpredictable in terms of their length and time. So this replica of this downward impulse, as much as we're going to look for the second institutional target, if it does that, we'll see. But if it happens, it would still be an aggressive Z that at some point is going to look for that replica. But I also tell you that seeing such a strong extension in the price, the failure of the downward impulse that we already predicted was going to fail. What does fail mean? It means that the extension is not going to be of the same length. That's failing. Well, if we reach such high levels, the failure would be even more than likely much shorter. So that corrective pattern could end up being, in the eyes of the world, why not, something ridiculous. In the end, the market is being so aggressive, so bullish, that of course it can draw scenarios different from what we could see just a few weeks or even days ago. And now I'm going to tell you what we think is going to happen with the crypto ecosystem. But before, welcome to Crypto Insight, your ethical and moral channel for cryptocurrency technical analysis. Here, we really know what we're talking about. We conduct advanced technical analysis that has been developed for over 12 years. We upload videos several times a week. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, let me know and leave a comment with your opinion. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell so you don't miss the next opportunity. Look, now we're going to a very small time frame, as small as a 5-minute time frame. And now you're going to see how within all this long-term difficulty, if we are in a bullish Z that we think is going to have to collapse, that seems to be surpassing important levels, which invites you to keep going up. Within all this difficulty that it certainly has, in smaller time frames, we start looking for other trading opportunities. And that's why in yesterday's live Crypto Insight session, what we were observing was this distribution here that had pushed the price down. And what were we looking for? Well, we had noticed that here smart money was accumulating long positions. That's why once the creek was broken, it was appropriate to wait for validation here on it. For what? Open question. Well, to seek the replication of the first impulse. Here I've drawn the first impulse, and here I draw the second impulse. As you can see, the things we tell you come from very deep studies at levels you can't even imagine. And of course, everything is very well researched. Of course, no one here is a magician, and trying to seek perfection and expecting it to exist is absurd. As I was saying, in the live session, we were looking for a contact on the creek to be able to go long. How far? Up to the trend line, upon which we were going to start looking for shorts. A short whose intention was to seek the replication of this bearish impulse. In other words, to take us down a bit more forcefully. But as we work with a methodology in Crypto Insight that ensures we can make profits even when the macro scenario does not materialize. Here you could have entered short, scalped, and closed with profit. Here entered another short, scalped and closed with profit, and here entered short and had a ridiculous stop loss. So, as you can see, here we also had an initial long from which we see 4 operations, 3 of which went well and only 1 went wrong. And when we do it right, we make more than when we lose. And all this in a hypothesis that we were looking for a bearish replication that never happened. Rather, the opposite happened. How do you feel about that? Like I said, a distribution against a relevant level breaks strongly. This is not going to keep breaking infinitely. Here they have made a process of bullish accumulation that they, before connecting me, are monitoring. You'll see, new colleagues, to look for these kinds of opportunities that are happening now. If you want, we can see what I was seeing, but basically, I was studying the volume, something we do a lot, right? What's happening here? This bearish climactic action with this climactic volume. Why aren't you continuing to go down? Response: because they have absorbed all the bearish liquidity. So this attack already gives us certain information. Then there is a deceleration of the fall, a typical event of a low, and then wow, it gets harder and harder for me. It's because you're already at the end. It's exhaustion. It's exhaustion of the fall when the aggressive fall is showing signs of exhaustion. Well, let's move on to buying a little bit. This concept of why I had told you during the recording. Have you seen the Cardano chart in Me5 at the beginning with this click before it broke? As I said, looking for that long. Then a colleague said, hey, the long is already happening. He came running to tell you. Well, yes, because my mindset is long for the immediate term. And there there it is. What is the goal? What is the goal? We'll see how long it lasts. But the goal in itself is to see this distribution, this bearish impulse, which we'll see how it does it, but that it will go to find some kind of level here. Hopefully it will make a gap. I think it will make it the gap. Let's see. We'll see. And from here, we would look for that short. A replica in Bitcoin if we get a little more exquisite, which I think is the right thing to do. Let's look for the level. There is the level. Something like that. Something like that. It has room to go up. They don't have to do it all at once. In fact, I wouldn't like it to be all at once, but who knows? They can do it like this. I would like it better if they did it like this to have more confidence in the short potential. Christian Distal sends us a screenshot of the long in Cardano just above the creek. Well done, Christian. Many colleagues don't waste time. If you find interesting the way we see the markets and how we can benefit from all this noise, let me know in the comments. Also, like the video, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon so that YouTube notifies you of future uploads. Now, take a close look at the Ethereum chart in its daily time frame. On one hand, we have been working with this bullish channel. I think the alpha angle of work is quite clear. And at the same time, just like Bitcoin has done, here we have a creek and we are seeing a bullish accumulation process that recently came to break its creek, came to validate it, and here we are now. This bullish accumulation process, as I explained to you before, smart money has a way of measuring these targets, and its target is in the case of Ethereum at the price level of approximately $29.98. That invites us to think that there is of course this bullish stretch. That's Z because in Ethereum we are also experiencing a Z. Look, here we have the macro bearish impulse. This is a W. This is a poor I precursor of an aggressive Z. Yes, as you can see, we are experiencing a complex corrective pattern. Remember, the goal is to look for the replica of the first impulse. The normal, the most usual thing is that happens, but be careful, they don't have to look for an exact replica. As I told you for months now, we have been looking for it to fail. That means it will be much shorter from where they want to do it before continuing. But as you know, to call it something, these patterns are not always going to be fulfilled. That has to be taken into account. Well, we give importance to the fact that Ethereum is at a market extreme, plain and simple. But hey, frankly, seeing this bounce off its structure and now contacting it again, this honestly makes me think they're going to want to break through the structure. Hey, why wouldn't they go for their institutional target? Note that there is another measurement for Ethereum. I've shown you the one I think they are going to use, but there is another one that is a bit more ambitious, not to be confused with vicious, and it is higher up. So, we don't know how far. It could be up to here, note. It could extend, why not? It seems like it doesn't want to end. And we'll see from where, if it happens, note. Nobody knows this. Who knows if later they work the classic structural trap to look for the much shorter replica failure? Why not on the creek? And that in the future we are ready to look up. Why not? This Ethereum scenario is setting it up. It's putting it on the table. But as I told you before with Bitcoin, be very careful, since when the price was making this correction, we expected it to go down a bit more before continuing, and finally they took off straight. It's unlikely, but as you've seen sometimes, even the improbable happens. And now tell me if you're liking this video format where I'm much more explanatory. I give you more details from perhaps a slightly more educational perspective, since if you find this format interesting, and you let me know in the comments, rest assured we'll bring it to you. This way, I also think that the analyses we show in Crypto Insight, which are so advanced, can be understood in greater depth. Now let's look at the chart of Cardano in its daily time frame. Here we give great importance to this recent structural breakout. Hey, watch out! It might not be a trap, who knows, but the idea that those who are distributing here may be failing in their attempt to protect their position, that invites us to think that we have an opportunity, why not, to look up. This is where great attention is needed. And Cardano, in terms of space, doesn't lack room. Similarly, we can say that Polkadot has just broken through its relevant level just today, during yesterday, and this could give it wings, why not, to seek an impulsive move. Because as you've seen with Bitcoin and Ethereum, if they want, they can go for those institutional targets that smart money has been working with for a long time. Solana, in terms of structure, frankly, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole no matter how much it might skyrocket tomorrow. It's not very interesting. Look at how BNB is also at its creek. With BNB, we have to handle it in the following way. Hey, let them do whatever, but if they come and break us hard, we're going to wait for validation in which it would make sense to look for an entry. Hey, why don't we go for that replica? Bet you're already looking at the charts differently. And now tell me, how do you see the market? Are you prioritizing longs or shorts? Leave me your opinion in the comments. Also, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to get notified of future posts. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and other trading or cryptocurrency communities. Good luck with your trades, and until next time.